When an elderly woman in a remote, chilly part of Russia adopted a pit bull, it raised concerns among many people who feared the dog's potential danger. Several months later, when they heard a scream, their worries deepened. Annika led a simple, modest life. She resided in a cold and rural region, far from wealth or riches, preferring solitude. Perceived as a recluse, she maintained her independence and avoided unnecessary interaction. It was a lonely existence, but it suited her just fine. She had never relied on others, and she saw no reason to start now. In her earlier years, Annika had been married and had a daughter. Tragically, her husband had passed away 2 decades prior, and her daughter had relocated to a city hundreds of miles away with her husband after the funeral. Visits with her daughter, son-in-law, and grandson were rare, but Annika remained resolute and self-reliant. She never wanted to burden anyone with her needs. Annika, however, had a soft spot for animals and had kept them throughout her life. After her last dog had run away, she had never replaced it. But one day, a large, rugged-looking pit bull started hanging around the streets near her home, clearly a stray scavenging for food. Driven by her love for animals, Annika began leaving out food for the dog. It would cautiously approach the plate of treats placed at the end of the path and devour them quickly before other animals could snatch them away. Annika noticed the pit bull's emaciated condition and recognized its need for care and attention. Unfortunately, every time she approached it, the dog would flee. Determined to win its trust, Annika devised a plan. She would sit in a chair several feet away whenever she left food out. Over the days and weeks, she inched closer to the pit bull, which gradually grew accustomed to her presence and associated her with food. Eventually, she could gently stroke its head while it ate. Though still skittish, the pit bull was far less fearful than when it had first appeared. Annika was delighted with the progress she had made, but her neighbors didn't share her enthusiasm. They were not comfortable with the presence of the imposing pit bull in their neighborhood, especially given the number of children around. They feared that the dog, if provoked, could pose a serious threat to their youngsters. The neighbors decided to take matters into their own hands, attempting to chase the pit bull away. This deeply upset Annika, and tensions reached a breaking point when some neighbors called the dog shelter to have the pit bull removed and euthanized. Annika was outraged. She knew the dog better than anyone else. She understood that despite its imposing appearance, it was a calm, gentle, and nervous creature that wouldn't harm a soul. All it craved was love and attention. In a bold and life-altering decision, Annika resolved to officially adopt the pit bull, which would prevent any complaints or attempts to take it away. However, her neighbors continued to voice their concerns, citing pit bull's reputation for being dangerous and aggressive. They worried that Annika, an elderly woman, might be at risk if the dog ever became hostile. Despite their limited connection to Annika, they cared enough to want her safety above all else. For weeks, Annika's neighbors tried to persuade her to change her mind, but her decision to adopt the pit bull, whom she named Benji, remained unwavering. Despite his timid and shy nature, Benji preferred the comfort and safety of Annika's home over the harsh and unfriendly outside world. With time, he gained weight, became healthier, and gradually came out of his shell. One day, Annika's grandson, a young boy of about 5 years old, arrived at her door. His mother had dropped him off to spend the weekend with his grandmother. Benji, still cautious and reserved, kept his distance from the boy, but kept a watchful eye on him as he played in the garden. Annika found it peculiar how Benji seemed to watch over the child, but she considered it a sign of the dog's gentle and calm nature, contradicting what her neighbors had warned her about. As the young boy played in the garden, Benji summoned the courage to sit in the shade of an old tree, observing him as he explored the surroundings. Benji watched as the boy gazed into the large pond, observed the swimming fish, and enjoyed the swing set. But suddenly, a sense of unease overcame him. It was almost as if Benji had a sixth sense. Though nothing appeared amiss, he stood up and emitted a soft growl. Then, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, echoing from Annika's yard where her grandson had been playing. Annika's neighbors, fearing the worst, knew that Benji, the pit bull, was also in the yard. They dreaded the possibility that the dog had suddenly turned violent, reverting to its presumed aggressive nature. If the boy or Annika had been bitten, there would be little hope of survival given the severity of their injuries. The neighbors were certain their warnings had been validated and rushed to peer over the wall. However, what they witnessed left them stunned and filled with shame for harshly judging Benji, the pit bull. It appeared that Annika's grandson had stumbled and fallen into the large pond while playing. Too young to swim, he struggled to keep his head above water. That's when Benji sprang into action, leaping into the water and pulling the child to safety at the pond's edge. The entire ordeal unfolded before Annika's eyes, and she had been paralyzed by fear, thinking she was about to witness her grandson drown. She screamed in terror just as Benji dived in to save the day. Benji had proven to be a true hero. The neighbors, no longer fearing the pit bull, helped Annika's grandson and Benji out of the water. They wrapped them in towels and blankets to keep them warm, while several people comforted the shocked Annika. Benji wagged his tail happily, appreciating the attention. He had shown that he was not a bad dog at all. In fact, he was the most heroic and selfless dog the neighborhood had ever seen. He had not only saved the boy from certain death, but had also won the hearts and minds of every single person who had initially harbored doubts about him. Now it's your turn. What do you think of this incredible story? What are your feelings about Benji, the pit bull, after his heroic rescue of Annika's grandson? Have you ever judged a dog or a person before getting to know them properly? We always welcome your thoughts and opinions, so please share them in the comments section below.